I had some great English teachers, but my favorite teacher and the one that is primarily responsible for me pursuing teaching as a profession, or at least giving me the idea that this would be a worthwhile profession and one that I might have success in, was my history teacher. And he actually, I had him in middle school. We're going back to middle school, such a formative time for me. But he actually got transferred to my high school, so I got to have him for 2 separate years, which was fantastic. But even though he wasn't an English teacher, even though he was a history teacher, he was so enthusiastic about his content that you just could not help, you couldn't help but catch that and be inspired yourself.
So there was more of an inspiration to become an English teacher. Did you still write during this time?
I did. Not nearly as much. Mm-hmm. I actually. So I've always written as a hobby, but for the longest time, I just life took precedent and well, I shouldn't say life took precedent, but responsibilities took precedent, and I really just didn't have the time or the mental space to really dedicate myself to writing, at least not to the degree that I would have hoped, not until fairly recently.
So how long have you been an English teacher now?
So I'll be starting my 10th year.
Wow. Okay.
This fall. Yeah.
That's a lot of years.
Yeah, I still had a bit of hair on my head when I first started.
Was it a little? Were you a little nervous the first day you started teaching? What grade do you teach?
Absolutely. I teach high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I have. So at our high school, ever since I've been here, I've taught sophomore English. English 2 is what we call it, but I have all the sophomores, and I've done that since I've been here. And then I have a mix of upperclassmen in my other classes.
And during this time, you got married and you have children.
Yeah. Well, actually, I got married before. Got married pretty young. Mm-hmm. I was 18 when my wife and I got married. Actually, no, I take that back. I'm lying to you. We got married when I was 20. We started dating when I was 18.
And she was English major too?
No, actually my wife, so when I was studying arts, she was just a general studies student. Her dream at the time, she's the only person I've ever encountered in my life who has professed such a dream, but her dream was to be a not a airline attendant, or not the person on the actual flight, but necessarily, but just someone like not a stewardess, but I guess maybe an airline attendant. She just wanted to work in hospitality. She was inspired by really positive interactions with people at airports, and she loves to travel, and that's what she wanted to do. So the hospitality business. She does not do that. She's actually a kindergarten teacher.
Oh, she teaches.
But yeah. Yep. She's got the little kids, and I got the bigger kids.
But the writing was still there, and I guess it came calling to you last August 2019. What happened then?
Well, okay, so when I started teaching, the writing was still a big interest, and I actually, small town, very small rural town, Wyoming. Our high school, our English department currently, and this has been the case as long as I've been here, but our English department it consists of 3 teachers, And so when I started, my two colleagues, both considerably more experienced, and in their benevolence, they allowed me to teach a creative writing class, in addition to the core classes that I did, and that was my idea. They asked if there was anything that I'd be really interested in teaching, and I suggested that, and I taught that for I think 2 years, and then we tweaked things. I kept some of the lessons, had them carry over into other classes, but it was no longer a creative writing class per se. So the reason I bring that up is in my teaching career, I'm really big in putting together my own examples for my students. That is, if I assign a particular essay or a particular activity, I like to put together the finished product that I want the students to shoot for myself. And that way I have a better understanding of just what it is I'm asking the students to put together. And, so I can make more reasonable demands as far as the process I'd like them to go through. And anyway, I wanted them to write a few short stories. So I wrote a couple of short stories for this creative writing class. So that rekindled the love of writing, but it kind of went dormant again for a couple of years. Again, I just didn't have a ton of free time or mental space. Learning how to be a teacher. Oh my gosh, it takes a lot of your focus, a lot of your energy.
Of course. And
also, my wife and I, we have two daughters. Our oldest was she was born the year that I started teaching.
Wow.
But August 2019, so let's see, with 8 years under my belt, I finally had reached the point where life had kind of slowed enough. I would like to say that I felt pretty confident in what I was doing in the classroom, and both of the kiddos no longer at the stage where they're requiring constant attention. They're out of diapers, and so I had a little more time to dedicate to this lifelong love, writing. And so let's see, it was actually, believe it or not, the first story that I had published. So it's a short story titled Chatterbox. And Chatterbox was actually a story that I initially wrote for my students as an example.
Wow.
Yeah, so I finished that near the end of the 2018-2019 school year. And I was really pleased with how it turned out. I gave it some more attention and polished it and submitted it, and it got published. And it actually, the August 2019, that's the month and the year when it was published.
Published where?
So that story was published on it. So the market is online only. It's a market out of the United Kingdom. It's called Dark Fire Fiction. And they've been around for quite a while. I'd be pulling the year out of the air, but I want to say that they've been around for nearly 2 decades. But going back to the aughts, I believe.
And you tried to publish? Did you try to publish it any other place?
I did. Yes, I did submit it to a few other places. um, I did submit it to a few other places. Learned the near universal experience and frustration of rejection, but that's part of the game.
But you got accepted.
Yes, I did.
And
yes, I did.
What was it like to have your little short story published in this?
It was so exciting. I immediately became addicted to that feeling, and I've been chasing it ever since.
Which brings me now to Boarded Windows, Dead Leaves, your anthology, which includes Chatterbox and many other short stories. What was the genesis of this anthology?
So this is actually this has been a long-term goal of mine. I don't want to rule it out, but I don't perceive myself as a novelist so much as a short story writer. The short form really is my form of choice. I lack the discipline to focus and dedicate my focus to a long form work. I really like that short form. And that's actually what I initially fell in love with. In addition to the horror genre, just the short story form. It was short horror stories that really got their hooks deep into me. And so anyway, my long-term goal has been to get enough stories put together for an anthology. And over the last year, I've put together these 9 stories, and was extremely fortunate to happen upon Spooky House Press and its publisher, Ottone, and present my collection and have it accepted. And I am so excited for the release of the book.
I guess we'll get into that. First of all, the title. Where did you come up with Boarded Windows, Dead Leaves?
I initially had a different title in mind, and it's actually a title that I used for one of the stories. I was initially going to call the collection Werewolf Cemetery. And this was actually before I actually wrote the story that currently is titled Werewolf Cemetery. Wow. I just really liked the title. I thought it was an interesting I want to say duality, but I'm going to try not to sound super pretentious. I just during one of my brainstorming sessions, I came up with that notion and just really fell in love with it. But the problem was that my anthology didn't have any werewolf stories, and as a fellow writer made clear, and I already had the sneaking suspicion, but he validated it. Prospective reader is probably going to be dissatisfied if he picks up a collection called Werewolf Cemetery and he reads it from cover to cover and there are no werewolves. So I abandoned that title for the anthology anyway, and Boarded Windows, Dead Leaves is what I came up with. I wanted to come up with a title that was evocative of the type of stories. So I do, I actually for an audio reading of one of the stories, that's set to be released on YouTube. The
narrator?
YouTuber, thank you. The narrator had requested some information on the genesis